This is People I Know Show, a podcast about interesting people, personal growth, and being wrong. I'm your host, Kurt Carstensen. Today, it's episode number 29 of the podcast, and my guest is Jeremy Single. Jeremy is one of my best friends from over the years. He and I first knew each other when I moved to the city of Rochester, Minnesota in the year 2007, and I lived in Rochester until about 2012. And our friendship grew over that time. Among the few reasons why I chose to have Jeremy on the podcast this week is that he is currently looking for donations for a cause very dear to him for the St Baldricks Foundation, raising money to help children's cancer research. We'll get into that in the program. And also look for that link in the show notes to this episode. Jeremy and I, over the years, we traveled together a few times and I had a lot of good memories. I was actually the best man and he and his wife Anna's wedding a few years ago. But I did move away from Rochester in 2012. So the friendship dynamics for Jeremy and I have changed in those years. I still see him, but not nearly as much as I used to. And that's another one of the things that we'll talk about in this conversation. We'll get into the personal growth in the being wrong segments. And Jeremy realizes, like all of us, that maybe we could have been nicer to some people at certain points in our life. Maybe still can. So we get into all these things, plus something else special going on today right now as we recorded, as we get into the conversation with my friend, Jeremy Single. Happy birthday, Jeremy.
Thanks, Kurt.
Here today with Jeremy Single. But Jeremy, I forgot how old you are.
Old enough.
Old enough. You're slightly older than me is what I'm thinking. Is that correct?
I just turned 38.
38 years old today. We're recording this on the day before it's released, on May 2nd. I turned 36, a month and a half ago. Do these mid to late 30s birthdays mean much to you? Do birthdays ever mean much to you?
Not really. I think the bigger numbers just symbolically mean something more, but, 40 would supposedly be a big one, but to me, they're just numbers. I don't dread it or have much significance towards it.
Do you celebrate your birthdays? Like I'm here, and this because of the podcast, it gave me an additional reason to be here today, and I'm going to celebrate with you today, whatever we end up doing. But do you celebrate birthdays the way you once did, or did you never? I can't recall.
Yes, things have certainly changed. When I was younger, it'd be, hey, let's go to the bars, get drunk, have fun, do some shots. Now it's just another day. It's nice that, there's things going on, get presents, and usually go out to eat several times, not only on my birthday, but usually a couple days before or after. But nothing too exciting. Generally don't have much for big plans. I took today off from work so I can relax and not have to do things. Also learned the hard way, 6 years ago today, May 2nd, we had a snowstorm in Rochester and got between 12 and 17 inches of heavy wet snow.
I remember that.
And we were living at our old house at the time. Anna didn't have to work, so she was going to drop me off so I didn't have to drive and park and clean my car off again. And she got her car warmed up, ready to go. And shortly before we were ready to leave, 2 large branches from the tree in her front yard broke and fell over the driveway and couldn't be moved easily. So we turned her car off and started my car up, which is in the street, and had to clean it off of a bunch of snow and get that ready to go. So needless to say, I was late getting to work. And then because I lived in town and actually made it to work, most of my coworkers had called in. So then I was lucky enough to get volunteered to stay in clothes and work an extra hour. So that was a pretty crappy birthday. So now you take your birthday off every year to not possibly have the May 2nd once a decade or so. Not even once a decade. How often does it snow in May? It does, but that was rare. Yeah.
And that was a ton of snow.
That was a lot.
And it was gone in like 2 or 3 days, as what happens in the spring when it snows like that in Minnesota. But it does happen.
Yeah, that one was particularly bad. And it worried me a little bit that, was it just last weekend or so, we got some snow. Originally, they were saying it could be up to like 8 inches, but I think we only got a couple inches, and it missed us for the most part. But yeah, generally you take it off because, hey, it's your birthday. You don't really want to work on your birthday, but...
And now we get to spend some time together in the afternoon here.
That's right.
And then the family will arrive shortly, and I get to spend some time with them. And I don't come down here. I say down, Rochester, southeastern Minnesota. I live near Minneapolis. I don't make it down here very much anymore. I lived in this city. That's how we first got to know each other. I lived in Rochester from 2007 to about 2012. And in that time, you, among a few others, became like my best friends, totally. And I really enjoyed living here. And then I ended up moving away. Not too far, but far enough that it's not super convenient to come here all the time. And now I barely see you guys.
Yeah, it's happened with other friends, even friends that are in town. I've got married, have kids. That happened to a lot of my friends as well, and it changes things. I've experienced it now and, understand it more. But it's hard to make time for other things. You work, you come home, you deal with family, you eat, you go to bed, and not a lot of extra time for, activities. You can't just up and leave and do something on a whim. You kind of have to plan things more, and yeah, time just kind of slips away. It's, I always have intentions to, hey, I should go see this person, or we should make plans to hang out, even if it's on the weekend, get together. And got, a good buddy Ryan is up in the cities now and keeps saying, hey, we got to hang out. We got to get up there, and maybe we'll go to the zoo sometime with our kids, or, do something fun as a family activity. And one way or another, we don't make it happen, don't schedule it. And then fall comes and winter comes, and it's crazy.
This podcast is proving to be the best way for me I've ever had to make sure I see people that I otherwise might not necessarily plan to see for how long. Like I already said, I wouldn't be here today on your birthday, except, and we'll get into the other reason shortly. It just seemed like the best time if I was going to have you on the podcast. This seemed to be the best time, and it works out. And now my schedule, unlike yours, like you have a wife, Anna, who you mentioned, 2 young children, your schedule, not flexible with that in your full-time job. And that's why our friendship and me not living that close, still good friends, I believe, except we just don't see each other and really don't talk that much anymore either. But you're wondering like how long I'm going to stay. And it really, I can do whatever I want until about Saturday or Sunday. And it's weird. I have things I need to do, want to do, but I don't need to do any of them immediately, except for put this podcast out to the world as the reason I'm able to make sure I see somebody on once a week average is because I know that I've committed to release a podcast episode every Friday. And it's so when you're talking about not being able to, these ideas that you have and not being able to always see these people, I get that. I think I've struggled with that before. I think a lot of people do. And I believe there's probably a way to get better at it that you just haven't come up with yet. So find one.
There's definitely room for improvement, and needs to be done, but it's proving to be more difficult. And we gotta just set up some plans, get it on a calendar, and make it happen.
Do you find, trying to think back to our time together, I'm sure before you had the other responsibilities, it was easier. But when you put something on the calendar, does it happen? Is it you're pretty reliable to be able to stick to your plans?
I think usually the problem is we usually don't get an actual date or set up something. It's like, oh yeah, we'll try and figure out something that works. I know we're busy, this weekend, I'll get back to you. And then you don't hear anything for a while and kind of forget about it. And then the time passes and it's like, oh, we still need to get together. And I think generally when a time is set up, unless something else, important comes up that would interrupt that, it could happen. But because it doesn't get, concrete plans or at least, even a date scheduled or, set aside, it generally doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think people can relate to that. You get these ideas, these thoughts, but then is it that maybe we're not that serious about it if we don't actually plan it? Like that would be nice in this perfect world where I had all kinds of time, but I don't have enough time to really make this commitment. Or I think in some cases it might be that.
Yeah.
Like, this sounds nice. But,
that definitely could be part of it. I think in my situation, it's more, again, it just seems like, I guess I don't necessarily make the best use of my free time all the time. But it just seems like so much of it is already scheduled with, working a 8 to 5 job Monday through Friday and, pick up the kids from daycare and have supper and get ready for bed. And there's not a lot of time. There's certainly opportunities on weekends, but I think because of work and family and not having much downtime and time to kind of relax, when I get that opportunity, I'm happy with just sitting down on the couch or sitting in the chair and relaxing and not doing something constructive. Like it's again, kind of poor use of time, but seems like the schedule and time during the week, it's just so busy and not a lot of room for, planning activities or seeing other people. You just kind of get, a bit burnt out from that too, and just need some downtime of not doing anything and being able to relax. I
believe it. The relaxation time is important. And I think I don't relax as much as not as much as I used to, and maybe not as much as I should. And I'm able to do that because I don't have other people depending on me. So I get away with it. But I see that I'd imagine most people spend more time relaxing, recharging than I feel like I probably do right now. It's interesting to consider some of these things. I don't really think about it or talk about it that often.
Things definitely change, Curt. I used to be a fun guy. Now
you're not fun anymore, you're saying?
I can be, but I don't have as many opportunities and don't take as many opportunities to have fun and do some of the stupid things I used to do.
I don't know if it's stupid, but
not necessarily
maybe
stupid, but
okay. So I think at this moment, I want to get into some of these stupid things or not stupid things that were fun. But as people are listening right now, one of the things I want to make sure we get out there so they know is for many years now, how many years now have you been growing your facial hair into crazy lengths and then about this time of the year, shaving it for a good cause? So talk about that and how long you're doing it and why you do it.
So a couple parts, I guess, to that question. I've been doing the whole beard thing probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years. The reason I'm doing it now is to raise money for a foundation called St Baldricks. And basically the St Baldricks, you pledge to be, a shavee where they shave off your hair on your head. Well, I don't have a whole lot of hair on my head. I've never really grown my hair out long. But this is now my 7th year of doing it. And since I don't have that much hair on my head, and since the last several years that I've been doing this, I've decided to keep my hair short after it's grown back. I decided to grow out my beard and have that shaved as well, to help raise money for St Baldricks. So again, St Baldricks is the foundation. The donations and money raised goes towards childhood cancer research.
Are some of the people that are getting their hair cut or shaved, do they have the length of hair that hair is then donated? Is that involved in this in any way, or why is it hair cutting?
I believe the hair cutting is more symbolic in standing with children who have cancer and a lot of times have radiation and other treatments where they lose hair.
Yeah.
And so they're bald. And so you shave your head and, to be committed to, having the choice to actually be bald versus not having a choice, having radiation or whatever affect your body and having your hair fall out where they don't have a choice in that, and a stand of, solidarity, to be bald with them and not have them feel, different or
And what was the initial connection to you and to this specific cause?
So I didn't really initially know much about it. I guess it all kind of goes back to one of my coworkers, Stacy, was involved with Camp Jornada, which was a local camp for children affected by cancer. And she kind of got me into that. Again, I didn't know anything about that, but she said, hey, by the way, we've got this camp going on. We need some more, male counselors. Is this something you'd be willing to, help out with and come check it out? And I was a bit apprehensive and didn't really know, what I was really getting into. And she's like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. You can just kind of swing by after work, check it out, see what you think about it. Okay, I can do that. Well, then as it got closer to camp starting, she's like, oh, by the way, we need to do a background check and we need to know what specific days you're going to be there, and kind of got more involved. It wasn't so much hey, just swing in and check it out. It was,
that's how they get you, Jeremy.
We need to get you scheduled for times to be there. We need to, be able to depend on having, enough volunteers around. And so we did, all the preliminary work and went and checked it out and was pretty much hooked right away. Again, I didn't really know what I was getting into. It was just kind of like, well, it's, camp for kids affected by cancer. You just, come hang out and see what it's all about. And I was, again, didn't really know what to expect, but quickly learned that it wasn't, something I'd be highly qualified for, know a whole lot about. Ultimately, it broke down to hanging out with kids from ages like 5 to 17 and basically play with them, talk to them, help be part of a normal childhood. So that was pretty eye-opening, and I was hooked immediately. And then instead of the, couple of days that I, planned on being there for some of the evenings, I said, hey, I'm going to be here this night. I'm going to take some time off from work. I'll stay overnight, a couple nights. And that was the beginning of it all. And ended up doing that for 5 or 6 years. After that first year when I was doing it part-time and working, knew about it in advance and took the whole week off of work so I could be there full time and be one of the camp counselors. And that was a really fun experience. I learned a lot, and just being able to, share time with the kids. And not all the kids had cancer. It could be, going from kids who did have cancer, kids who were in remission, brothers and sisters of kids that were affected, children of parents who had cancer. There's kind of a wider range of people affected. And so it was a really, really cool experience. And so that's what started it. And then Stacy's like, hey, there's this St Baldricks thing going on. You should come check it out. Some of the kids from camp and their families are going to be there. You should come check it out. So I went to that, saw some, old friends from camp and, saw all these people shaving their heads and thought, hey, this is something I can do. So after that, I'm like, knew about the event and signed up and volunteered to do it. And it's a pretty cool event too. You see, obviously there's a lot of people where, again, kids have been affected by cancer, raising money for childhood cancer research. And so you've got, kids and siblings and parents of people who have cancer and, other people, doctors, nurses, people that help take care of them that are involved in this. And, there's plenty of females that have long hair that shave everything off, go completely bald. So it's not the primary goal is, raising the money for research. It's not so much donating your hair, but obviously if the hair is long enough, I imagine they would save it and donate to Locks of Love. Yep.
With Camp Jornada, is that still happening?
Unfortunately, it's not. I guess I don't know the whole story or reason, but it kind of just stopped happening. I know expense was part of it, timing of things. There was, I think, a ruffle with the board of the camp, and I don't know the whole story, but unfortunately it kind of just stopped. And so instead of having that week-long connection and other, certain events throughout the year, it pretty much just kind of went to nothing, which was kind of a shame because it was such a great experience and something that the volunteers and kids looked forward to every year. And, not being able to have that big event and hang out for the week with friends and meet new friends and new volunteers, it just kind of stopped.
Well, I guess not everything goes forever, but at least you had that experience and it's led to you at least committing to doing this annually. And maybe there's some other things that you can still get involved with that are related or in some other way attached to that experience that you think you'd enjoy.
Absolutely. I guess another reason kind of getting involved with camp and donating and St Baldricks too was one of my best buddies from high school got cancer at a young age after we graduated, and he dealt with that for a while, and I was going to college and was away and didn't see him much, and came to visit him at home or in the hospital, and he ended up passing away like a week after his 21st birthday. And it was crazy. I got a call from, one of my other buddies when I was up in school, and they let me know that he had passed away. And it was a tough pill to swallow. I wasn't ready to accept it. Didn't know that it was coming that quick and didn't really believe it. I'm like, are you serious? Like, this is kind of a bad joke if you're, pulling that. He's like, no, he passed away. So that was, one of the closest and early experiences with cancer. My grandparents passed away of cancer, but I was young, didn't know a whole lot, but he was the first close person that I knew and had spent a significant amount of time with and growing up with, and his life was taken away with cancer. And it's fortunately, I think everybody has at least some sort of experience or involvement with cancer, friends, loved ones, it's all too common and you can't really get away with it. Somebody or love is going to be affected by it one way or another.
Well, your event is, as we're recording this, just 2 days away this Saturday on May the 4th. So some people are going to listen to this before then, have an opportunity to donate. I will put the link to your page in the show notes. If someone happens to listen to this after your beard's already shaved and the event on Saturday is over, can they still give through your link, or is there going to be another way that we can send them to if they want to at least contribute based off of hearing your story and your reasons for trying to get involved here?
Yeah, you can still definitely donate. Encourage you to donate any way you see fit. But there will be a link, and you can still donate to the cause and to my fund directly. There'll be a link. It's not cut off at the event or after the event. It is still open, and donations are still accepted. And the easiest way is online. You can also do, cash or check, but especially if you're not nearby or have access to the event or me, online donations are easy, quick and easy.
It's very easy. I donated a few days ago, and yeah, it's very easy, whether you're donating or spending in some other way, very easy to send money through the internet these days. So it's no problem on that, I'm finding. All right, let's move back to kind of the direction we were going before we went into that. Is our friendship started, I guess I would have met you in 2007 when I moved here to Rochester for a job at that time. And we both were involved in the Rochester Jaycees. You probably were for a few years before me. And one of our mutual friends, Chris, was also involved. And he was one of the very few people I knew in this city when I moved here. And so then I got involved in the Jaycees at that time. And that led to you and I seeing each other both in those events and also just hanging out a lot. Probably over the 5-6 years I lived here, I would see you pretty often during some of those stretches. A lot, like pretty much every weekend probably in some of those times. And we had some fun nights around here. And we've been around the country a little bit and done some things. What stands out? What memories jump to mind when you think about those days or maybe hanging out with me?
Yeah, there's a lot of memories that come to mind. We've done a lot of fun things together, had a lot of experiences. You mentioned, meeting through the Jaycees. One of the things that came to mind thinking about, past experiences and things that we've done or, been together for, probably the first, if not, one of the first times we met or spent any time together was after a Jaycee event. I forget if it was the Sandbox
Probably
Phil.
Sandbox Phil.
I believe it was the Sandbox Phil.
And for the Jaycees, and this is not even in existence, so that kind of had its... We're talking about some things that no longer exist anymore, it sounds like. But it did bring us together and a lot of good things along the way. We'd do an annual Sandbox Phil where companies would donate sand and equipment to deliver the sand, and people would buy the sand, would deliver it into their sandbox, and then the money would go into the Jaycees fund, some of which is donated in different ways. So we do this once a year. And I think the first one I was involved with is probably in 2007, shortly after I moved here. And I didn't really know anybody. So I don't know what you're about to say here. But
so we did that. Tons of heavy work, lifting, sweating. I don't remember the particular day because we had done so many, I've done, 7, 8 Sandbox Phils. But I do remember we went to like a bar and grill afterwards to hang out and relax and get some drinks and have some food. And it must have been around this time of year as well.
Yeah, we always did it in the spring.
Because we had Coronas. And Curt, I don't think had been too experienced with Coronas. Typically, when you have Coronas, you get a wedge of lime. And you can generally push the lime into the bottle. And if you're savvy enough, turn it upside down to help it kind of mix in and flavor it a little bit. Well, this apparently was Curt's first experience doing that.
I'd seen it done before.
And so he was over by myself and my now wife, Anna, girlfriend at the time. And so we showed him, hey, you push this, through the top of the bottle and put your thumb over it and turn it upside down and let it, go into the bottle some and then flip it back over. So he tried it, and I guess I don't know what he did wrong or if he wasn't holding his thumb down enough, but the pressure built up and sprayed out of the bottle, and I think most of it landed on my wife, Anna.
Yeah. It seems so easy when you watch someone else do something. It's like, oh, just put the lime in there, flip it upside down, and I immediately just started squirting all over right at Anna. And I don't know if I'd ever said a word to her in my life, probably a little bit because she's so friendly, and now, that happened.
Yeah. So that was a good time. But the first impression, I guess, but we...
you barely knew me.
It was a good enough impression that we had some laughs and hung out a lot after that. So
yeah, so in those days, I guess we'd have the events occasionally. We must have started hanging out more and more often. I was having a conversation with someone else earlier today in reality, outside of the podcast, where I'm learning more and more that our memories, the things that we remember to be true, might be way off. And also we struggle with our memories, but we think that our memories are accurate. And now just thinking about this, I just come up with emptiness and a lot of like, when and why did we start getting together and just hanging out as friends? And we're going back 12 years here. I don't know. Maybe for the first few times it was just at these Jaycees events where we'd go volunteer, go to the meeting, and then afterwards we'd hang out. But that was like the first time, I think.
Yeah. I think that's kind of how it all began, is, mostly through the Jaycees, came acquaintances, hung out, had a few drinks, had fun together, had laughs together, and that led to spending more time outside of the Jaycees and getting together. And, at that time I was friends with Chris as well, and, excuses to drink or get together on the weekend. And
that's something I've talked about on previous episodes of the podcast occasionally, is that used to be my lifestyle, especially living here, where I was off of work on the weekends most of the year. And on the weekend, my routine would be, well, it's Friday night, it's Saturday night, let's go out, let's go to a bar. And that, I think the culture in this city and a lot of places, that's what people do. And that's what we did. And I had a lot of fun, but now I don't really live my life that way at all. And you probably do it a lot less because of the family and every other reason you probably have. But that's what we did back then. I enjoyed it, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad decisions and headaches and hangovers and all that goes along with, drinking too much and too often, but sure makes for a lot of good stories. And I'd certainly have a lot of fond memories of, 20s and early 30s drinking. And yeah, you're right. I mean, that was, at least for me and a lot of people around here, I think was kind of the thing to do. It's Friday, Saturday night. For a lot of people went out on Thursday nights, Wednesday nights, not so much me, but weekends when I, didn't have to work. That was, the opportunity to go out and have fun and socialize, have some drinks.
It's always the drinks. And I've learned I do not need to drink to have fun. Absolutely do not. But I still drink sometimes, and sometimes it does help with the fun in some way, or I think it brings people together in certain ways that without it, we certainly could get together, but that's the habit, that's the culture, and I think a lot of us we kind of always go back to it. We'd hang out in Rochester a lot, but we also have traveled different places, and I think that's some of the better memories, I think, come with that. I remember we've been to Chicago as part of a small group. And I think the same group, then we've been to San Diego together.
Correct.
My first time really spending time in those cities, both of them. You were there. Have we been to other major cities together?
I remember going to a baseball game with you and Chris in Wisconsin. Was it the Loggers? No, Tracks?
Eau Claire Express. That's not really a major city necessarily, but we hung out.
That was a travel.
But that was one of the first times I hung out in that city too.
First time I'd probably ever been there.
And also we were non-sports fans probably don't quite capture this as well. But we were part of a group that went to see when Brett Favre, longtime quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, was with the Vikings, the first Brett Favre game as a Viking at Green Bay. We were there. Of all the sports experiences in my life, I've had a few really cool ones attending sports events. And the reason I think I'm continued to be a sports fan, some of these events that you can be at, they're pretty amazing. You get 60, 70,000 people there for the same reason. In that case, it was 60,000, 65,000 Green Bay Packer fans. And they couldn't be more upset about the situation of Brett Favre being the quarterback of the Vikings and the Vikings beating them. And that was so much fun to be a part of as a Vikings fan.
That was pretty awesome. There was a lot of purple in the stands too.
Yeah, so maybe the percentage was higher than 10%. I don't know, but
yeah, it was crazy. And that was the biggest football game that I've ever attended. I maybe had been to one other Vikings game prior to that at the Metrodome. So that was a pretty big event for me too. I always, watched them on TV, and here I am in Lambeau watching the game, and thankfully the Vikings won because it probably would have not been nearly as much fun.
I actually ended up going to the game the next year, also at Lambeau Field with the Vikings, and Favre was also the quarterback, and the Vikings lost that one. It wasn't as much fun, correct? So
that's because I wasn't there.
Oh, well, it's possible. When you're around Jeremy, things escalate to a new level of fun. And on that same trip now, that was over Halloween, whatever year that was, maybe 2009. And Green Bay is so small, relatively speaking, you think of it as a big city because it has a major sports team. It's 100,000 people, I think, where we went on this bus of mostly Vikings fans to that event and stayed overnight the night before, which was Halloween night in Appleton, Wisconsin. And we were just glancing at some photos from our fun times together. And that was the night where there's 4 of us, and we decided to buy the costumes. The 3 of you were Ghostbusters.
Yep. Me, Chris, and Jacob bought Ghostbusters costumes.
And I happened to, I don't know, did I volunteer myself to be the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man?
I think so. I think you wanted to stand out. You knew you had tough competition, so you had to try and one-up us one way or another. Of
all my Halloweens, that's probably the most memorable one, because we're in this city that I don't think I've been back to Appleton since. Maybe one time passing through. That we don't know anybody.
Right.
And we're in this team of this Halloween costume where we're grouped together. But I was totally made up in face paint. You probably did my face paint. It seems like something you would do.
I think you might have done that yourself.
Okay.
I certainly don't remember doing that. I don't think I was involved with the face paint.
But in order to try to look like this Marshmallow Man, who in the actual movie was like way bigger than everything, right?
Yeah.
I had this puffy winter coat, and it was October 31st, so I'm sure it was cool, but I remember being so sweaty and the face paint running off because I was super overdressed to be in character, and the face paint didn't quite make it through the whole night. And you go into these packed bars and clubs, and I think that was one of the times where, because I was so anonymous, and this is when I was less confident as a person in general, probably. The alcohol probably aided more confidence in that moment. The anonymity and being in a strange city. But my goal was to find as many women in costume that night and get just random photos with random women. And I think I did pretty well with that as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and I was having a good time.
Yeah, you definitely got a lot of attention with the costume, and helped having the team of Ghostbusters with you. And that also made me remember we did a lot of bar hopping and just kind of went from bar to bar. And I know at least on several occasions, shortly after we arrived there, the DJ put on the Ghostbuster music.
Oh, that's right.
That was pretty cool.
Man, that's fun. We need to hang out more, Jeremy.
We do.
Come on. What else? What other stories you got? And as we do this, and I know we're recording it and people are going to hear it, but I feel like this is both for us to recant these stories that are going to someday fade from our old guy memories.
Yeah,
perhaps.
It's sad how a lot of things get forgotten, or like you mentioned, you maybe forget some of the details.
We both experienced this, but slightly differently because, we were different people, and you're remembering things that I didn't remember, like the Ghostbusters song.
I think I don't know what it is. I think of certain experiences tend to stick in my memory better, even when I'm intoxicated and shouldn't be able to remember a lot of the things that happened. There's some experiences where I seem to remember like every single detail and don't know how I could have possibly remembered everything, but maybe it was just like looking back at it the next day or talking about it and then kind of cementing more in my brain. But another thing that came to mind, not intoxicated, was you were over here visiting and it was snowing and we had a hot tub, and so we went and sat out in the hot tub, and I convinced you to go jump in the snow.
It was cold too.
It was cold.
It's like, this
and
is
windy.
Heart of winter.
Yeah, it was not a nice winter day. It was cold and windy. There was a significant amount of snow on the ground. And he's like, no, I don't want to do this. It can't be good for you. Shocking. Your body going from extreme heat to extreme cold and back in the hot tub. And I finally managed to convince him that, hey, let's do this. It's an experience. I've done it before. I'll do it with you. And he kind of finally reluctantly agreed to do it. And so he jumped out of the hot tub, and I convinced him to go run around the side of the house. Then I thought, well, hey, I got him to do this. Let's make it a little bit worse. And so I started throwing a bunch of snow on him. And
we did have like a race too.
We probably had
raced
a race
to the top of the deck.
Yeah, and then
pretty sure you won.
We you wanted to have it documented and wanted pictures of it, so we were yelling or banging on the house or something, and got Anna's attention, and she reluctantly agreed to come out and take a couple pictures of us. I think we ran up the deck stairs and took some photos and ran back down.
Someday I still feel very young, and I still think I do a lot to live that way. But at some point, it's going to be some pretty good memories of having done these things. And I tend to have fun with you, Jeremy.
I'm a fun guy.
You are a fun guy. Like an fungi, like the small one cell bacteria fungi.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
fungus, fungus among us.
Anything else come to mind? I've got some other things I want to get to in the conversation, but I like to remember the fun times.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, I used to be fun.
You are fun.
I'm still fun.
No, here, seriously. If you tell yourself that you're not fun, then you're not going to be fun.
Well, I'm fun, but I don't make the time to be fun and have those
Beginning today, you're going to start to make the time to do this.
That's right. All part of this podcast.
Yes, no, it is.
Turning my life around.
Well, maybe. Do you think your life needs to be... Okay, we'll save that for the personal growth.
All right.
Okay. Any other stories before we go to that?
Well, we got tons of stories.
Okay.
I don't know how much time we have for stories and how many stories we should necessarily share publicly, but...
So one thing that I think you mentioned before we started recording, and I have no hesitation to share anything publicly. Like, I don't care. Here's my life. Here's me. However someone perceives me at this point, this has helped by having many recordings. I find that just being who I am and allowing anyone to know me in whatever way they happen to get to know me, it makes me feel so much more comfortable and confident in myself and not to concern myself with what someone else might think. I understand how someone else maybe would have a hesitation to reveal whatever they don't want to reveal. I'm okay with revealing everything. You did mention the one time we went Rochester Jaycees ice fishing to the Brainerd Jaycees ice fishing extravaganza where they give away like $1 million in prizes or something. They do this every year and have done it for many years. The one year that I went, did you go more than 1 year?
Yeah, I went at least twice, maybe 3 times.
It's the only time I've ever been ice fishing. As a born Minnesotan, I've been ice fishing one time in my life. And that year, it was, what? With the wind chill, like 20 below, 30 below, it was crazy cold.
Yeah.
And with that event, to make it fair for everybody, you can't have a fish house. Everything's outdoors.
No shelters. I don't know if even wind blocks were allowed. I'm not sure. We had nothing, though.
It was an experience I'm happy to have had, but it was one of the most miserable things I've ever been involved with.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was cold. There were other things that made it not so fun, too. I believe my first ice fishing experience was probably the year prior when me and Chris and a couple other people went up. I believe this was the year after that you joined us. But yeah, it was cold and windy, and when you're not catching any fish and you might be a bit hungover.
Oh, that's probably you. I'm sure I was fine.
You might have been all right. You probably gave up and stopped drinking.
Well,
early.
I was trying to have a beer on the ice, I recall, and it froze. Like the liquid froze enough that it was slushy to the point where you couldn't even drink it.
Right. There was no finishing any beers unless you slammed it immediately.
Which is hard to do when it's that cold.
Right. Yeah. They would start slushing as soon as you cracked it, and you could get a few drinks, and then it would be...
I don't know if you were in my car, but we got there late because in part, I think some of us got a slow start, and then I went to like the wrong lake or something. I was driving, and then we left early. At least I did, because it's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm sure some years is better and is probably more fun, but that was an introduction that made me feel like I don't really need to do this.
And I don't think any of us, with maybe the exception of Jacob, were ice fishers.
Yeah.
He had some gear, and we probably borrowed some of his poles. The rest of us were just there to have fun, hopefully maybe win some prizes and socialize, and again, drink was, I think, one of the incentives, making another experience. Yeah, no, it was a good experience. And my life has become more and more about life experiences. And the fact that I have that memory, it's because of, you guys inviting me and I saying yes and showing up to do something different. And it's kind of crazy. I believe, I'm not 100%, but I believe it may be the largest ice fishing tournament in the U.S., if not the world. Yeah, I think they bill it as which that. Which is kind of crazy. It's in our state and up north, a few hours away. 2-3 hours away. Something cool to be a part of, and, is put on by the Brainerd Jaycees, and Chris has a connection with them. And so that kind of helped, too, with, helping with lodging and, got to kind of hang out with them afterwards. That's a huge undertaking for them. Obviously a giant event, getting sponsors and setting up and drilling holes and all the things involved. And the first year I went up there, I didn't know what to expect. Hey, we're going to go ice fishing and whatever. Well, we didn't catch any fish. It was cold. But the thing that blew me away is when we got out there and we're walking towards it, one, you're walking on a lake. Okay, that's not too crazy.
Well, it is to people who've never done it before.
But the crazy thing was, it was basically like a county fair set up in the middle of a lake.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see a bunch of vehicles driving on the ice, and even more surprised to see a mini donut stand and a cheese curd stand and all this stuff just hanging out in the middle of a frozen lake.
Middle of a body of water.
On some ice. I wasn't prepared for that. It was pretty cool, and I was glad that there's, food available, but
you've turned my opinion on this, especially knowing that there's an audience that are hearing us talk about this. I don't want my miserable cold experience. And I think I was dressed warm enough. The thing about cold weather in Minnesota, no matter how cold it is, if you prepare well, you can withstand it somewhat. Like, you can dress warm enough for basically any weather if you have warm enough clothes and proper gloves and face coverings and maybe some hand warmers and different things. So you can be out there for a few hours and like survive, I guess, and not have frostbite and make it be okay. I'm not saying it was great.
Not have frostbite. That's
but
a huge plus.
Yeah, it is a plus. But it is a pretty neat event overall, whether or not you like to ice fish. So, I probably, if I remember, I can put a little link in our show notes for this. It's something to check out, because the photos of it, I think it's something that people that don't know that things like this exist might be kind of interested in.
Right.
And having it as one of those things to put on the bucket list and scratch it off right away after you go to it, because it's something to see, that's for sure.
For sure. And if you're lucky and or skilled, you catch a fish, you might win a brand new truck.
Yeah.
Like, there's tons of prizes, and it's all, I believe, ranked by weight.
It's pretty
of the
random.
Fish.
It's like,
but yeah, there's so many. Obviously, it's the biggest ice fishing tournament. There's so many people out there. I'm sure the fish aren't like, hey, let's go to all these holes next to all this loud music and trucks driving around. And I don't know, maybe the strategy is be closer to the mini donut stand. Maybe like, hey, that smells delicious. I'm going to go check out this hole.
Do you think fish have these types of conversations with each other in
Probably.
their schools?
I've never been a fish, so I'm not sure, but
okay,
it might happen. Nobody in our group ever caught a fish.
No.
Probably never even had a bite.
I'm pretty sure I thought my line was deep into the water, and it wasn't. I didn't even know what I was doing. Well,
you live and you learn.
Yeah, kind of. Not really.
And sometimes you don't do it again.
Jeremy, you haven't even alluded to this yet, but you've been married now, 2013, so coming up on 6 years, or 5.5 years, probably.
6 years in August.
And I was chosen by you to be the best man in the wedding, which is quite the honor at the time. And still, I think will always give an extra meaning to our friendship that you saw me as the person for that role.
Yeah, it was kind of a decision with myself and my wife, somebody that was, involved in both of our lives and both, friends of both of us, and not one over the other. And, I'd been involved again. We met, the same time, sprayed Corona all over us, and
that was important. And that made it into my best man speech a little bit. I think, I don't think there's video of that. Maybe it's for the best. I can't remember what else I talked about. But
it was, honor to have you as our best man and represent us and be part of the big day.
And you had an outdoor wedding, and that was late July, early August. Early August. Yeah, that was in great weather, if I recall.
Yeah, we lucked out. It wasn't crazy hot, and it didn't rain. It was sunny and nice, and it was a bit warm in the sun, but as far as August weddings in Minnesota, can't get a whole lot better.
And I was already moved away from Rochester at that time. And we'll go one more story here before we get into the personal growth segment of the People I Know Show podcast today. We went to a group of us, including you and Anna and our friend Kim. We went to San Diego probably like a little over a year later, December of 2014, if I recall. And I guess that was probably our last big trip together. Probably one of the last trips you took before you started to have children.
Yeah,
I'd imagine, where you were young, wild, and free without extra responsibilities in life.
That's right.
And I'm still young, wild, and free at 36, forever. Maybe not forever. I think there's a couple things especially memorable about that trip. What comes to your mind?
One of the more memorable moments was attending a party down there. We didn't know anybody. It was the first time I'd been in San Diego, maybe the first time even in California, certainly as an adult or, memorable experience. And our friend Kim knew some people down there. And she had been invited to a mustache party.
Like a Movember type of thing?
I guess so, yeah. I don't know if that was like an annual thing or if that was the theme of the event that year. But I believe it was, for raising money for like wounded soldiers and
oh yeah, yep,
that type of thing. There was a military connection
in San Diego
and people there. And so we're like, well, yeah, let's go to a party and hey, we got beards and mustaches. And I'd previously grown a crazy long curly mustache as a result of St Baldricks, and shaved my beard and kept the mustache and styled it and had some fun with it. And so, yeah, let's go to this mustache party. It's going on while we're down there. Let's check it out and see what it's all about.
And the day before that, I think, in order to, because I didn't have a mustache, I had a beard, but for the one and only time in my life, I went to, maybe they call them barbers still, but I went to the barber to have them do something with my beard. So I will, always in the Instagram and Facebook posts related to each episode, I put some photos up. So I'll dig up some photos from Jeremy and I, and one especially where if you look at it closely, you'll see that this guy, he like put designs in my beard. The craziest thing I ever did with my face, probably. It looked really good. It was really strange, probably also, because on me, I don't know. I don't think it's really the look that you'd think of when you see me, is my guess. But I had all these artistic designs into my beard at this party that night, and you had your giant mustache.
I didn't have the mustache, I don't think. I think I had kind of a normal beard too.
Really? Oh.
I remember we were eating somewhere and happened along a bench that was in the shape of a mustache, and it was out in front of this barber shop. And so we went and took some pictures with it. And I think somebody that worked in there talked to us, and we kind of went in and checked it out. And you asked about doing something with your beard or styling. Like, oh yeah, we can, come in and we'll fit you in. And so I did something too, and nothing as crazy or drastic. You kind of just gave them free reign to do whatever you thought. And I thought it was cool. I know there was when you posted pictures on Facebook, there's comments, I think, primarily from your family, probably your mom and sister, saying,
typically those are the two.
What did you do? And it's not typical Curt and something different. I wouldn't say it looked bad or anything, but certainly not something that they were fond of, I guess.
Oh well, it grew back pretty quickly.
But I also kind of let them do whatever, and ended up going with more of a Tony Stark type theme and shape of the beard a bit. So that's what we did prior to the party, so that we could look cool, I guess. It was a new experience, and neither of us had anybody professionally shave or trim our beard, and he used a straight razor to clean up stuff.
The people that do that, at least that guy in particular, he was pretty talented. That's quite the skill. I probably should do that again sometime. Maybe not the same design, but go to professional, because I just kind of keep trimming my beard forever, and I don't know that I really make it look that good at this point. It's just there.
You just need to let it go. Stop trimming it, let it get long and unruly like mine.
Yeah, that's cute. Very cute, Jeremy.
But yeah, along with the mustache party, where we didn't really know anybody there. Kim knew a couple people. I had met her friend Chris, who lived down there and was part of the connection, maybe once or twice before. But we took a Uber to the party and walked in, and it was kind of a back room of a bar, and so many stories and memories. I don't know where to start and what to leave out. But
I wouldn't leave anything out, but you can leave out what you want to leave out.
We'll try and make it a bit brief, because I tend to get sometimes long-winded in my stories. But we got to the party. Really hadn't had a whole lot to eat. We thought there was going to be more food and menu, and we'll just order something at the bar. I think we did have like a slice of pizza on the way there prior to going there. And we never really did end up ordering food there. And we drank a lot.
That was the first time I was aware of the existence of Fireball.
Yeah.
Cinnamon whiskey.
Fireball. Good stuff. Not really. I'll still drink it, I guess. There's worse things to drink.
But that was your worst experience with that particular drink, right?
I also hadn't had much of it. I probably maybe had a few shots prior, different occasions. But again, for them raising money, they had, raffles, and you'd buy tickets to try and win some of the prizes. And you could also, if you bought drink tickets, they had tickets for beer and tickets for shots of Fireball. Well,
so it was for a good cause.
It was a good cause, right? We were helping people out, so we bought some tickets. Well, most of us drank beer and didn't want to get too crazy right away. Well, it turns out the tickets that we bought for beer were only for one kind of beer that they had on keg for the party.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't fond of it. I don't think anybody really was.
Oh, it was gross.
And I ended up stupidly drinking a lot of your guys' beer because I didn't want it to go to waste, and we spent good money on it. I didn't really care for it either. So then we're like, well, this is dumb. We're not going to keep drinking this girl's beer. But we still wanted to support the cause, and we had some of these tickets. So we said, hey, instead of... Because the tickets, I believe, were the same price for the pint of beer or a shot of Fireball. Like, hey, can we use these beer tickets for Fireball instead? Oh, yeah, sure. So then we just switched to drinking shots. And it's funny, with Fireball, that was also the time that I believe Pitbull had the song that mentioned Fireball, and that came on probably a couple times throughout the night. And as you would imagine, switching from drinking beer to taking shots as your primary drink, I probably switched to Captain and Coke, and you maybe had other drinks as well. But we were feeling too generous and bought way more tickets than we should have, and took way more shots of Fireball than we should have.
I was fine, Jeremy. How was your next day?
Well, I don't know about you being fine, because I remember us both yelling and dancing like fools. Probably because similar to our Appleton situation, we didn't know anybody and didn't care if anybody saw us being stupid because we'd never see them again.
Although in reality, at that point in an evening like that, I don't know that I care about much of anything,
right,
of what people are seeing in me.
Neither of us certainly did by the end of the night.
That is, with alcohol, that is the one beauty in it. If it's maybe the way I react to it. I think so many of us, we go through life, we're trained in our culture, maybe your upbringing or individual upbringing, to not showcase aspects of yourself to the world around you. But boy, when I just let loose and react to the moment and not worry about what someone thinks, I have so much fun just being myself. And I can do this more and more now sober than I ever used to. But there's a beauty to just being your natural self and whatever you do without thinking, oh, I better not do this right now because someone might see me and someone might judge me. And I don't want to live a life of, I better not be judged. I don't want to be judged. I got to not be who I am.
Right.
So those moments, yeah, I think we should strive for that always, sober too,
yeah.
Jeremy.
Yeah, you can certainly do that. One other particular memory of this trip was we found out that they were going to be doing awards for mustaches. I thought, oh, this is cool. We've got these special designs and whatever. Well, also thinking, well, I don't really have my long curly mustache. I don't really have anything that special. I decided, well, we're going to a mustache party. I'll shave a giant mustache in my chest hair.
Yep, that happened.
And so that happened. And so we go to the thing, and the two MCs and people in charge of the thing were like, hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. And checking things out. I'm like, oh, hey, you got to see my mustache. And so I lifted my shirt up and showed him my chest hair mustache. And I'm sure he's like, oh, there's this weird guy from Minnesota that I've never met before. Showed me this weird mustache shaved into his chest hair. And whatever. Then again, I don't take myself all that seriously, and partly because I knew I wouldn't really see them again or have a close connection. I really didn't care. But that was that, and whatever. Then they, start doing these awards, and instead of, here's the, funniest mustache or the manliest mustache and best mustache, it was that, and they had like a whole write-up. Like they had a whole, introduction to that before they announced who won. So I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool, but they're, talking about these guys personally and, know this backstory and have this whole thing. This is a crock. They don't know us. They don't know our backstory. We're not going to win anything. Mm-hmm. It's all going to be people that they know closely. I was probably a bit drunk and whatever, but was a bit ahead of my mind that, this is rigged. We don't have a chance. We're not going to get any awards. Was kind of let down, whatever, and was being a Debbie Downer. And then partway into it, they announced my name. And I was just like, wait, what? What just happened? Well, I had managed to win the award for creepiest mustache.
Is that a new award that they came up with just for you?
I don't know. I don't know if they already had pre-planned awards or if they made them up as they saw people. But it's funny because it was a whole formal thing, and then you had to go up on this little stage, and they gave you a award certificate for the creepiest mustache and how it had all these made out. So I went up there and accepted it and shook hands, and they had a photographer in the crowd, and so he's taking pictures. I'm like, well, this isn't the creepy mustache you want to see. And so I lift up my shirt and show everybody in the crowd my chest mustache, and got some laughs, which I guess was what I did it for in the first place, and kind of turned the night around too. This is before too many shots of Fireball, but then I think having won that award and having more fun and getting
time to celebrate then
with the crowd and celebrating, we did more shots. And
is that the greatest achievement of your life, being voted creepiest mustache guy?
I don't know about greatest achievements, but one of many achievements. It's funny, I actually have the award downstairs. We saved it, and my wife, I think probably for one of my birthdays or Christmas or something, put it together with some fancy mustache paper and some other pictures of my mustache and some pictures from that night. And I guess it's still a proud moment. Not something that was hard to earn, I guess. I didn't apparently have too much competition for creepy mustaches that night, but it was a proud moment. We had fun and had entirely way too much fun. I'm sure closed down the bar, came close to it, and went back to the hotel. Thing was fine, but again, we didn't really eat much and certainly didn't drink enough water. Went to bed and woke up the next morning not feeling so hot. And the next morning, we also happened to have planned to go to the San Diego Zoo. So I managed to get up and get ready and probably threw up in the shower. Maybe, Kurt, you may remember more.
I don't remember.
I know I was hungover. I'm pretty sure I threw up at some point in the morning. And then we walked around the zoo in the warm weather all day. And
so did you enjoy the San Diego Zoo, Jeremy?
Not as much as I could have.
Yeah.
I was a trooper. I tried not to complain too much. But I certainly was not in my best form that day. But then we went out and drank again the next night. So
yeah. Well, habits.
Yeah.
Old habits die hard sometimes, Jeremy. Let's move to the personal growth segment of this podcast. And this, I don't know, you said you've been listening to some of the episodes. I don't know if you listened to some of the recent episodes where I put a greater focus on this segment. It's in recent years been a big part of my life, is just trying to find ways to continually improve myself, make my life better, make myself happier, whatever I can do to do that. So when I mentioned personal growth to you, what came to mind about some of the things that you've been doing lately, something you can share that perhaps someone listening might be able to learn from?
One of the things that came to mind is I sometimes get upset about dumb things. One thing that I find most frequently is driving. I get really upset with other drivers. They're bad drivers, dumb drivers, inattentive drivers. and seems like it's everywhere and all the time. And so I try not to get as upset as I sometimes previously had, and, you know, not do anything about it or say anything, even though people can't hear me most of the time.
Oh, you mean when you're yelling at the driver that's in the other vehicle and you both have your radios up, they can't hear you yell at them?
Right. Usually it's just they're not even, like, they're ahead of me and can't even see me, but they're driving erratically or not paying attention or driving super slow.
And you're getting angry and frustrated.
Right. And so I try and let that go. And for the most part, I consider myself a pretty relaxed and chill guy and don't let things get to me. But driving and road rage, if you will, kind of gets to me, and try and be more mindful of that. There's nothing I really do. Sometimes I honk if it's excessive or ongoing or dangerous, or if I need to get their attention. But
something that's helped me with that is, like, I think I'm a pretty good driver. I drive a lot. I bought a new car last May, a little less than a year ago at this moment. And it's about 35,000 miles I put on that thing already with my Uber and Lyft driving, and just driving to work and doing everything else that I do. And I realize that I'm not a perfect driver. I occasionally do some stupid things. It's rare. I think the percentage of time, it's very minimal. But in those moments when someone, either they honk at me or they don't, I realize, I have the ability to be a bad driver.
You're one of those people that...
I'm one of those people that someone might be angry at right at this moment.
Right.
I think it really is rare, but it does happen, which then makes me think any possible time that I'm upset at somebody else, they could be a good driver that just, you know, they're not perfect. They're human.
Right.
This is why we need the driverless cars that ideally would become perfect, maybe not immediately, pretty close, and then be perfect. And we never have any of these issues. That's a whole nother topic. But everyone that's driving is human. And some people maybe just generally aren't as good of drivers, but we're all capable of being not a good driver in a moment.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm, you know, guilty of having rare instances where I've, you know, done something stupid or, you know, not been the safest, I guess. But I think that's very rare occasion. And usually if there's any indication of that, or a horn honked at me, it's by somebody that I passed or honked at already or whatever. But again, that's pretty rare, I guess. But I'd try and be more open to realizing that, you know, it's human people with issues. Again, you don't know their whole story. Maybe they're just had a major accident and they're super scared or driving more slowly or cautiously. Or maybe they've got a newborn in the back seat and they're, you know, driving really slow. You don't know what the situation is. And so it might be a reason for something that they're doing. But I think that if that's the case, I think they could still be more mindful or respectful of driving and drive more cautiously or more aware of people around them. It seems like most of the time people are unaware or not paying attention or looking ahead to potential dangers or issues. Like they're just driving in the moment.
And I find that with anything in life, people can't know what they don't know. So, like, I remember growing up with, like, my family, my dad in a vehicle, when someone's not driving the way that we think they should be driving, my family, we tend to become pretty vocal and we can become very aware of that. Some people might grow up in a situation where they learn to drive, how they learn to drive, they're just not taught all of these extra lessons that some of us think that we all should know by now. Unfortunately, not everyone's going to have the same experience. And if they're oblivious to something they're doing, well, they're just oblivious. And you yelling through your car in a way that they're not going to hear them, that doesn't help them. It only hurts your mentality. You or, you know, anyone that does this, and I've done this too. It's just a way to rethink. Yeah, I like that you brought this up, to rethink, like, what is the purpose of allowing ourselves to get upset in these moments that we can't help the person that's allowing this upset moment in this moment. And maybe we're not even trying to help them. Would we try to help them if we could? Us getting angry, it doesn't serve a purpose at all.
Exactly. And that's, you just get yourself more riled up and more, you know, upset about the situation, and there's, you know, not much you can do about it. And that's, kind of ironic because that's how I generally feel towards most other things in life. People get upset about something. It's like, well, there's nothing you can do about it, or it's in the past, let it go and kind of move on and don't dwell on certain things, especially if it upsets you. I mean, there's instances where, it's something that you need to do, I guess, but there's a lot of small things that people will get, upset about and affect their mood or ruin their day. And it's just like, let those things go. And so I try and, recognize that while I'm driving, that, hey, don't get worked up about this. But it's just upsetting with it being as frequent as it is, where usually it's people not paying attention and driving, and it's dangerous. And it's like, I don't know. I think that's where most of the frustration is it seems like there's bad drivers or people not paying attention everywhere. And makes it more dangerous for, people like myself, or people who, are generally good and safe drivers.
Yeah. It's just it's the irregularity. There's 90% of the 95% of the drivers are doing pretty much the same thing. And then someone's doing something different that's going to be the potential danger if the car is moving different speeds, doing different things, are possibly going to collide in some way. Yes,
exactly.
I haven't done much meditation. I've tried it a little bit, but this seems to be a perfect example of when those negative thoughts come to your mind, just getting better at just releasing them right away instead of attaching, like keeping somehow that thought clinging to your mind and creating this unnecessary anger. Just being better at recognizing it's one of those types of thoughts that's hitting me and just letting it go.
Yeah.
Your day's going to be better.
The good thing is this, that's one of the few things that affects me. And generally, as soon as I'm done driving or get out of the car, it's over and done with. But then the next time I get in the car and come across another person that upsets me with how they're driving, but I let it go quickly. At least it's not something that I hold on to.
Do you notice what you're saying, though? It's upsets me as if this person's act is the reason for your upsetness. But really, in reality, in these moments, it's you allow the way your mentality is allows you to be upset. No one ever upsets us. We allow someone else's actions to be the reason we create to get upset. And that's something I've began to learn and look at differently. No one else is doing anything to us. We're right. Allowing things to happen.
No, I agree. And that's what I'm, working on being more aware of. But another thing that goes along with that and being upset is a lot of the times when I'm driving, I've got my 2 younger children in the backseat. Yeah. I don't want somebody else, causing an accident because they're not paying attention. I can do what I can to keep them safe and drive safe, but I'm more concerned about the other people on the road and their driving ability versus mine. And, knowing that something that they're doing or not paying attention to could potentially cause a major accident and injure myself or my kids is, where a lot of that feeling comes from.
I can get that. What else? Is there more that you would say that you're focused on personal growth?
Yeah. One of the other things I need to do more work on is I'm a pretty good procrastinator.
Oh, so you're really good at this thing.
I'm pretty good, especially when I try. I tend to put things off either to the last minute or at times not get them done. And that's been a problem, I guess, kind of growing up. It's not something new, but has become a bit more of a problem because, like we mentioned earlier, having a full-time job and having a family and kids, I've got less free time to do things. And if you are a procrastinator and tend to put things off, then if there's things that you need to get done, they just keep piling up and harder to get them done, less time to do it.
And then it becomes more daunting to even think that all the stuff I have to do, I don't want to do any of it. Yeah, I get that. I lived through that. I am a procrastinator. I find having, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, having this weekly deadline to myself is something I created that I wouldn't even need to do, but I've committed to doing. It forces me to, like when we were trying to schedule this for this week, I knew I was going to find a way to get it done because I'm committed to having this episode up on Friday, May 3rd.
Right.
And it forces action. And I think I learned through some of my personal growth involvement with Michael Burnoff, Core Strength Experience, some of that stuff that I've spoken about, episode 25 episode 26 most recently with my niece Michaela, is when I look at these situations, like I feel like I now have better methods to actually getting more accomplished. And I don't know that everyone's gone through a similar training where they've been able to find a way that works for them to get more done more quickly, do whatever it is that you're working towards. And I'm better at it. I'm not perfect at it. I don't think we're ever perfect at anything. So when you say you're really good at procrastinating, I get it. I feel like I get more done now than I used to. So I'm wondering if we can find a way to allow you to accomplish more. Like I can see that you want to, but you just sometimes you don't know how.
Right. Yeah. Setting deadlines obviously is important and something that I can work on and need to do more of.
So the deadlines is one thing, but like, yes, I have this podcast and every Friday I've committed to getting an episode, but why? Like, why do anything? What is the purpose for doing anything? The things that you have to do, are they things that you really want to do, or the things you kind of have to do?
Yeah, combination of both, but probably, more things that I have to do and don't want to do.
I think it's important to create a type of life and existence where the things that you need to get done set you on the path or are part of the path to something you really want to accomplish, because then probably going to be a little more motivated, a little more excited to do it.
Right.
So I don't know. We haven't gotten to many specifics here. But here's a question I'd like to use for this segment occasionally. I'm curious, and I didn't prep you on this at all. What's your biggest challenge in life right now? And take as much time to think about it here as you need to. And if not the biggest, what's one of the biggest challenges in life right now?
It's, I guess, kind of more broadly would be having the time to do things and better use of the time that is available. It's crazy how, you're waiting for the work week to get done and, you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Hey, the weekend's here, but now it's not as much personal, like the personal freedoms, I guess, have changed a lot, having a family and kids to take care of. And so we still do, fun things, and it's still relaxing. But the scope has changed now. Instead of, hey, it's Friday night, let's go out and drink and have fun and sleep in on Saturday. Let's get the kids to bed by 8:00 and go to bed and sleep and get up early in the morning and watch some cartoons or a movie and get breakfast ready. And things have changed. And so it's, again, being able to create more time for ourselves and to be more productive with the time that we have.
So with the kids and being a dad, and this, I don't know if we ever really talked about this much before you were a dad, but well, maybe I feel like that's something you wanted.
Yeah. And it's a great experience. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad thing. But it's a huge change from being single and having time to do what you want when you want, where now you have a wife and 2 kids that depend on you. And, my kids are young, like 3.5 and 15 months.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still very dependent on us and need us to do a lot of things. And it's certainly a completely different way of life than when you don't have people relying on you for basic needs. And it's rewarding. It's great seeing smiles on their face and making them laugh and playing with them and having fun. But it takes something out of, your personal life and personal growth. It's a different sector, I guess. Like you're learning the parenting thing and doing those roles versus going out and doing something crazy on a whim.
And part of the process then is you're growing them. You're helping them be as smart as they can be at this age.
Right.
As healthy as they can be.
Yeah.
And still at those ages, I suppose, there's more and more you're going to be able to do as they get older and are able to be exposed to more and different things. So like your growth process, all of our individual growth processes can and should be important, but yours is going to have to intersect probably in some ways with your being a father and having that be involved with your marriage and your kids. And that's something I'm not dealing with at all, something I can't really know exactly what it's like, but I'd imagine you think about this in some way that's like, okay, how do I do all this better to be happier? Kids are happier, wife's happier, life's happier.
Right.
So how do we do? I mean, that's the point of this podcast, many things, but one is like, I want to do things better. And I want to, if there's any possible way that this conversation can lead to something being even better than it is, it's because right now is right now. It's your average or however you want to describe it. But how do we get it better? Do you think about that though? How 1 year from now I'll be better at this and that and this and
right.
Everyone's happier.
Yeah.
Is that a part of your daily thought process at all? Or weekly, monthly?
Sort of. I guess not something I think of in those terms or yeah. And if I, had the answer, I'd already be working on it more and doing more of it. I mean, it's I think a multi-area issue and work, and there certainly isn't, I don't think, an easy answer. There's probably easy steps to make certain things better and learn and grow from there, but I guess I haven't really thought a ton about it or examined it much to discuss or find or learn the answers yet, but something I'll certainly be looking into.
Let's go back to, you see, your biggest challenge is finding a way to use your time differently, better. So, how do you use your time now?
During the week, again, most of it's used up with work and family and getting the kids. And, I know part of my time management and procrastination comes in with just being able to, when things are caught up and the kids are taken care of, to just sit and relax and watch TV or catch up on Facebook or, do something that's not super involved or important, where I can just relax, let my brain rest a bit and kind of, recharge a bit. And I think some of that time could obviously be better used cleaning or, doing certain things that, aren't glamorous or fun and
that would take effort.
Put off.
Where TV and Facebook don't take effort. I mean, I don't watch much TV anymore, but I'm on Facebook a lot. Even like as I've been sitting here with you, you stepped away for a minute and like immediately you just click onto Facebook, start scrolling. There's some value in it.
Right.
It helps people expose, like this podcast, the fact that I'm trying something. More people are aware of it now than they would be without Facebook. But it's a bad habit of mine to just get into this time suck for even as few minutes here and there, and turning on the TV. Like, I don't know what you watch on TV, but is it total time waster, or is there something to be gained from it? I don't know. I think everyone has these things that they could look at in a way they maybe haven't looked at.
Right. They can certainly limit, that time or find something to be more productive. But I think at least with Facebook, it can be a time suck, and certainly intend to only be on there for a little bit. And then you look at the clock and more time has gone by than you expected. But I think that also kind of helps still being involved with other people's lives, like yourself and me. We don't see each other face to face as often anymore. Mm-hmm. We can still be connected and know what's going on in each other's lives through Facebook. And so having less social contact and everything helps keep me kind of in the loop, if you will, which serves some purpose. A lot of it is, not necessarily worthwhile and is garbage, but
it's true. But, and I agree with you that it's kind of nice to know what's going on. But then again, like you and I, we don't do this very often. Sometimes months probably go by where we don't even reach out to each other.
Right.
I mean, I don't look at that negatively, but it's a reality of our friendship. That's just it's not a habit that we're into. There's some people in my life that I do reach out to much more often, and I wouldn't, if I had to compare them to you to them, I don't know that I value them in my life any more or less. I just think it's a part of the habit. Like you and I have not developed a habit of staying in contact constantly.
Right.
Where each of us has individually developed a habit of clicking on the Facebook app and wasting time away, where instead we could, in theory, we could like just reach out to each other and probably enjoy that time just as much.
Exactly.
So there's habits and patterns that we're in.
Yeah.
And some of them serve us well. Some of them don't. And there's some that I don't think we even are aware that we even have them, but we just do them.
Right. And part of that too is it seems, it's a different dynamic when you're reaching out through text or Facebook or Messenger or whatever. It's even on the phone. I mean, the phone is a little bit more, because if you're really having a conversation or trying to, catch up, it's easier than, clicking on stuff or being distracted. You're kind of more one-on-one, but even then has different value than being face-to-face and in presence and doing something together versus, texting or whatever. And that's maybe part of it, but still same way. We don't get on the phone and call each other and say, how's it going?
I think a lot of us, at least I can always truly speak for myself, I've gotten out of that habit. I don't call almost anybody under normal circumstances. When I'm in the car sometimes, like, I have this time that I could, I can't stare at Facebook right now.
Right.
So in these few minutes, I can maybe call my mom or my sister or somebody, but I don't call that many people. It's really, I think we get trapped into these habits and behaviors that we don't even really know that we have. Like we know that we have them, but we don't realize how much of our time is spent doing things that we do just because we've always done them or done them for a long time.
And then even if you do recognize that, you do little to change it because it's hard with it, or it's hard. And it's funny how with communication and electronics and technology, it's so much easier to be in touch and connected with people, yet the generation is probably the least connected in some ways because of that technology. It's like you've got all these opportunities where you can call people, FaceTime people, email them, text them, Skype them, do all these different things, and you either don't do it or you do that, and that replaces, direct contact with people or hanging out with them. It's weird how, looking back, where you've got a phone hanging on a wall in the house somewhere and connected to a cord, those people may have been more in touch and used that technology. And
that was one of the only ways to connect from a distance.
Right.
So I think people
and
did
now
it.
We have all these other options, and it's used differently and maybe less frequently. When's
the last time you and I sat down, just the two of us, and talked for an hour and a half? Especially without a beer in front of us or something.
Right. Yeah. I can't remember anything recently for sure. I think just me and you hanging out talking has been limited as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's been a few experiences, I think, here and there.
I think so.
Yeah, just doing one-on-one, talking, hanging out, having a conversation other than catching up on each other's lives for a short time before we do something else or other people join has been minimal.
Yeah. But I enjoy it.
Absolutely.
It's your birthday. Let's move on to the Being Wrong segment each week in the podcast and make sure that my guest looks back on their life on something and comes up with something they can definitely, confidently say that, yep, looking back now, I was wrong about that. So for you, Jeremy, what were you wrong about?
One thing I definitely am wrong about when I was younger, growing up in high school, I guess I was a bit of a bully to people. I wasn't necessarily like the big bad bully, and certainly wasn't physical, but said and did hurtful things to people. And looking back on that, I realized that it was stupid and not something I, should have done or been involved with. And part of it was maybe peer pressure. Part of it was, oh, well, if I do this to this other person, then it'll distract from me possibly getting bullied. And, you know, there's things that I said that certainly weren't nice. And looking back on it and realizing, you know, a lot of the situations, it was definitely wrong and not something that I should have done or been involved with. Luckily, one of my friends, and we're still good friends to this day, I picked on quite a bit. And a lot of the fun was poked at with his short stature. And the more I think about it now and, you know, even see things on Facebook with mutual friends or people I'm not super close with, but, you know in some fashion, and see, you know, their friends, you know, making jokes or poking fun at them still while they're adults about their height. And, you know, the more I think about it, especially with, you know, something like that, it's like, well, they didn't choose to be short. There's not much they can do to change that. Something they were, you know, that's how they were born. It's not like you're making fun of their bad hair choice or, you know, something that they have control of. I mean, bullying in general is mean and wrong, and certainly has been exposed more in, you know, the last decade or so. But I think, you know, looking back on it, it's like, wow, just making fun of somebody because of who they were, which, you know, obviously now I've grown up, learned a lot more and more accepting of people and, you know, I'm sorry for, you know, some of the things that I had done in my past when I was young and dumb and didn't realize the effect that it can have on people.
Have you been to like a high school reunion or something where you've been able to be in contact? I guess you mentioned the one individual, but the other, like, as you talk about this now, are there a few different individuals that come to your mind of, you know, that, yeah, I was really not nice to this person that you haven't maybe seen since then?
Yeah, there's some. I mean, I guess I wouldn't go, you know, to the extent where it was like a ongoing thing and kind of long term or, you know, certain people singled out. I mean, there's, you know, people that come to mind that, you know, I remember saying things about or, you know, poking fun at. I guess I haven't seen, you know, some of those people recently, probably within, you know, the last 5 or 10 years. There's some people that, you know, I did see at a reunion a while ago, and, you know, they've obviously changed too. You know, somebody that I, you know, didn't necessarily get along that well with, or, you know, had been mean to me at some point. And, you know, things change. You grow up, you learn stuff, you know, certainly become different. And they, you know, they certainly seem much nicer and not, you know, the same person that I remember. And I'm certainly much different from kind of the shy high school, middle school kid that I was. You know, going to college and becoming an adult have certainly changed a lot of things, and I'm, you know, a much different person than I was 20 years ago. You
both described yourself as shy at that time and at times a bully. Did that like play together in some way as a way to vocalize yourself and to be known?
Maybe. I don't know why I did it, and then kind of joined in with other people around, friends or other class members that were poking fun or laughing at somebody, and kind of went with it. And I don't know if it was because I was shy or, you know, what the reason was, but certainly my, you know, personality has changed quite a lot. So I don't know that you, since you've known me, would ever categorize me as having been shy. I think I'm maybe a bit more reserved towards newer people. But once I've, you know you better and more familiar with you and more comfortable with you, I might come out of the shell a bit more. But I don't know, when you first met me, I mean, this was a while ago, and I don't remember, but I don't know.
I don't think shy is the right term, but it isn't like you always say a lot. But I think someone could read me that way as well in different situations. I'm in a bigger group setting. I don't really say anything.
Right.
It's just, I kind of adapt to what's around me. So I think if I was seeing you in a larger group setting, yeah, you probably didn't say a ton. Reserved, I suppose. That might be a better term. Yeah, and I can relate to high school, the being a bully. I don't know that I would classify myself as a bully, but I'm sure there's moments where I joined into the not being nice to someone. But far more often, I was bullied at times, and I think that's a part of one of the mechanisms is, either going to be bullied or be a bully. I guess if those are the two options at the time in your mind, and you'd much rather, I think, probably be a bully than be bullied because no one wants to be bullied.
Right.
But I certainly was not perfect in that way. With the few individuals that always seem to get bullied, I probably jumped in a little bit, but I don't think I felt right about it, but I don't know what to do. And I just,
right.
It's an awkward time of life. And
For sure.
I don't expect kids to be great at anything. I don't expect anyone necessarily to be great at much because we're always learning and adjusting and ideally trying to get better and working through these things in our mind and hopefully coming up with better ways of doing things. But I can relate to at times not being the nicest person in the world in high school.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. And I wouldn't say I was classified or thought of as a bully. Again, it was, limited and it wasn't physical or anything and something I was known for, but certainly wasn't the perfect saint or didn't stick up for individuals who were being bullied necessarily all the time. Maybe if they're my friends or whatever, I'd intervene. But like you said, if there was, certain people that were likely targeted, it seemed like you kind of joined in. And again, that partly was probably because you'd rather be part of the bullying or making fun of than being on the receiving end.
And I think, in those moments, you feel like you got to choose a side, I think, sometimes. But what that makes me think of now, you mentioned Facebook, and we've talked about Facebook a little bit. Sometimes I pull into whatever random, something like a local TV station or something, some of these media posts where you get a lot of comments. Boy, people are mean to people they don't know on the internet.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's amazing how they'll click on someone's profile, someone they've never met because they have a different political opinion or something, and just say the meanest things. It's like crazy to me how someone can be so mean to someone.
Yeah. I try and stay away from those. I sometimes get drawn in by curiosity and look at something and then start reading a bunch of more ridiculous things. And I certainly don't post or throw my name into those, but you see a lot of dumb stuff out there. And it's crazy that adults do these things. And it's, because of the, access technology, you can see things from anywhere. And like people say, you can hide behind a keyboard. You don't have that fear of knowing or seeing somebody, but you hit the wrong person and who knows what'll happen. They might be crazy and come track you down. And
sure hope not. Again, though, what purpose does it serve? Some of these times where we get angry, upset at somebody we don't know, we'll never meet.
Right. You make somebody bad to feel better about yourself somehow.
I'd like to think I don't do that much or at all, but I'm sure there's ways that perhaps I still do it. But I'd like just this conversation hopefully making the thought become more prominent of when that happens, that maybe there's a better way to do it. Jeremy, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad you can make it down. We can spend some time together.
Yeah. I don't even know what we're going to do tonight, but I'm happy to be able to spend the time with you and the family, and since we don't get to do this very often.
Yeah, that'll be fun. We'll just kind of wing it and see what happens. Go get something to eat.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to People I Know Show. Links are in the show notes for the People I Know Show Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube accounts. Please, once you go to these pages, to these accounts on your app on the computer, click on subscribe or follow or whatever other feature that it might have for you to be able to visit them more easily, more often. Also, there is a link in the show notes so you can make a donation through Jeremy as he is raising money for the St Baldricks Foundation, raising money for children's cancer research. Also, I've put a link in there so you can quickly learn a little bit more about the ice fishing extravaganza put on by the Brainerd Jaycees every year. Would you or could you help me make the show grow? One of the best ways is to leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're listening somewhere else, another thing you can do is just anytime you see a social media post regarding People I Know Show, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or somewhere else, please comment or like and interact with it in some way. That just gives it more visibility, which helps more people see it. Also, something you can do in your own time, encourage at least one other person to listen to an episode, or you can just share it on your social media. To email your feedback directly to me, Curt Carstensen, use the email address peopleiknowshow@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.